Hey y'all, get comfy, grab a little snack, have a cup of tea with me. Let's get started. Last time I talked about this really wild story about my family, and this time I thought it'd be more fun to talk about social work related stuff and kind of tie it in with some of the other things I've been interested in. Maybe a month or two ago, I got like really into true crime. I was watching three YouTubers, Haley Elizabeth, Danielle Kirsty, and Bailey Sarian. The three of them I've been watching a lot, and they all do their makeup while they talk about whatever true crime story there is that week. And I have never put my own makeup on before. I've had my makeup done like entirely on my face once when I did drag for a friend's 30th birthday party. And then I had, like, growing up, I put on like concealer whenever I had like a massive pimple, and it was always like my mom's or my sister's. And then I put on lipstick once when I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show the first time. So that's like the extent of my makeup history, my use of makeup. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of combine not true crime itself, but some aspects related to it and connect it with social work and trying to do my makeup at the same time for the first time. I'm gonna be talking today about grief and loss and how homicide or murder impacts the grief and loss process. So obviously when something that horrific happens, then the way that people are trying to cope and deal with that is really different, and the way that other people react to that and then interact with the person who's going through loss, the bereaved, it's just really different. Let's get into it. Okay, so I just opened this box and I bought all this stuff from Elf. I don't know if that's a good brand, or I don't know. I found what was cheap online. I got a bunch of stuff and I don't like 100% know what everything is, but I got some stuff that I thought like would make sense. Like, I know people use foundation, so I got myself one. I think this looks similar to my skin tone, but I guess we'll find out. There's a mist and setting spray. I think you have to put that on at the end or in between. I also, like, obviously watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and so I think people put on like this in between like layers of stuff. So maybe before like contouring or something I can do this. I don't know. I got a little liquid highlighter so I can give myself a nice little glow, you know, do the T thing, or the nose, you know, a little tip. And I think people do it here, and some people do like the little thing there. I think that's highlighter. So I got a contour palette, I got a powder blush palette. I really wanted to try contouring. I thought that'd be fun. Shape shift a little bit. I got this crazy palette for eyeshadows, and I think I'm gonna try to do some like sunset or something. That could be pretty, you know. Maybe put a little gold on top of it or something. Are these all shiny? I'm gonna look so good. Maybe. Or horrifying. The thing I'm most worried for is eyeliner, because I don't really love sticking stuff near or in my eye. I don't really know if you like put it on the like actual eyelid, you know what I mean, like the bottom part of your eye, or if it goes like right under that and it's supposed to like outline it. But I think people do it like on the actual line, and I don't like that. It's freaky to me. Wait, lip filler liner. What does that mean? I only had girlfriends for the most part growing up, but I still didn't really talk about this stuff with them. So, and I grew up in a house of just women, my mom and my two sisters, so I feel like I should know maybe more of this. I mean, and I'm gay. Mascara, this I'm excited about. I think my point was that maybe I should be good at this, or at least have tried this or practiced once, but I have not. I just thought maybe I would have by now, you know? It's just not really my thing, but it's about to be. This is the other thing. So I feel like naturally I've been pretty lucky to have like okay skin for most of my life, and like I'll get pimples here and there, but it's never like a big problem. And I'm always too scared to put things like on my face like this, because I'm worried that it'll like fuck with it so much. And like, I don't know if that's science, but it does feel like if you were like putting on makeup and like stage makeup and stuff often, then like, I don't know, it's just gonna like mess with your skin more. I don't know if that's a real thing, but it feels like it's a real thing. And I got this little one because I've seen people use these and they look so fun. I've always wanted to touch one and just see what it's like. Oh, it's just a sponge. Okay. I thought it was gonna be like some super sponge and I don't know, have some weird qualities. It does feel a little pillowy. And I like that color, that's nice. Okay. And then I got a whole bunch of brushes. So hopefully, and it's a set of 12. So maybe all of these will be for a different thing. I don't know if I'm supposed to use them for different things. Oh, and of course I got makeup removing cloth. Yeah, little cleansing cloths. What's this? Oh, brow comb. Oh my God, they say on the brush. That is so helpful. For foundation, okay, now I know what to do for that. What is this? Lip plumping gloss. Do I put that on after? Okay, so, oh God, I don't know where to start with all this. Oh my God, I'm also supposed to be talking about grief. Okay, Jesus, this is harder than I thought it was gonna be. And I thought it was gonna be hard, so this might take me a little while. Sorry if this is a long video, but y'all ain't gonna watch it anyway because I don't have any words, so it doesn't matter. Let me just go through some basic theories around grief, and then maybe I'll do like a little section of my makeup and then like go back and forth. So, grief theories. First, obviously starting with Freud, everything starts with Freud. And so his belief around grief and loss is that you kind of have to just like let everything go. There's like the idea of moving on, and that's a pretty white and Western way of thinking about loss in general. And like a lot of cultures and communities want to stay more attached to the deceased and have more like days of recognition around that. But past models for grief and loss counseling, a lot of it was focused on the idea of catharsis and moving on and whatever. And those like theories that you need to do those things were pretty much debunked like decades ago, because like that's not the only way to deal with grief and loss. So Freud had that kind of moving on as like the starting point. Then it goes to Lindemann. But Lindemann thought that getting so attached to someone and then losing them, that the weight of that loss will just drag you down if you don't disconnect yourself from. He also talked about focusing on readjusting the living environment so that you can now experience the world without that specific person in it. Another thing that he found that was really important was the foundation of new relationships as a way to grow and move on from loss. After that was Worden. Acknowledge the loss, process the pain, adjust to a world without the deceased, find an enduring connection with the deceased while you continue on with life. So that last piece about finding that connection to continue on with, sometimes those are photos, sometimes those are memorial days, once a year kind of just reflecting on them. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know, having those memories and understanding how parts of yourself have developed as a result of the relationship with that person. But some way to stay connected without having that connection drag you down. Acknowledging the benefits that that relationship has provided for you. And sometimes like relationships aren't obviously all positive, but you still lose a person and it's complicated. So it's about making sense of the relationship in a way that benefits you and you can go forward in your life without that person. Stage-based theories are really popular. They were really popular for like a number of reasons. The biggest one is that they're like really simple to understand and they're so linear that it kind of feels like you can just like check off one stage, move on to the next one, and you're like, okay, I'm moving along this process of loss or grief. And it doesn't feel as, I don't know, convoluted and confusing as grief and loss typically is, because people fluctuate between emotions back and forth. Sometimes the loss doesn't hit them right away, and then a year later or 2 years later or whatever, people like are really feeling. The linear models really help people to simplify and make sense of things in a way that is easy to cope and process. The Kubler-Ross is like the most famous one, and it's the one I'm sure you've all heard before. It's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I was just working at a rehabilitation facility, and we would talk about moving on from the relationship you had with that substance as a form of grief and loss, which I think is a really good way to think about it, because it's a consistent relationship and connection that you have in your life that is usually pretty positive because it releases dopamine and doesn't fight back against whatever you want, you know? It's a very uncomplicated relationship at its base. Obviously, it comes with a lot of complications later and has wide-reaching impacts in your life, but the relationship between the user and the substance is like pretty straightforward. So we would usually use the model, the Kubler-Ross model, to talk about these and talk about them in stages, but people often were in multiple stages at one time that were on like opposite ends of the linear spectrum, and some people would kind of fluctuate back and forth. And this is like the problem with these models, is that they're just not realistic because people are too complex for that. After Kubler-Ross, there was Bowlby. So Bowlby talked about another linear model where you start out with being shocked or stunned and have this feeling of numbness, and then you go into a phase where you're feeling a kind of separation anxiety, which results in yearning for and searching for that person or new meaning in your life. And then it goes into a period of despair and disorganization, which you're recognizing the loss, you're attempting to try to create a new sense of normal. And then at the end, you find new roles in a new organization to your life that makes sense without this person in your life anymore. So then Rando has a 6R process, which is in 3 different phases. In the first phase, avoidance, all you're doing is recognizing the loss. From there, you can move into the confrontation stage, where you're reacting to the separation, you're recollecting and re-experiencing the deceased and that relationship with them. And then near the end of the confrontation phase, you're relinquishing those old attachments to the deceased. And there's this thing called the assumptive world. Basically, all the assumptions that you have give you an idea of what the world is like. And you have to kind of let go of some of that in order to take in the new information that like you've lost this person, and how loss then plays into your life as a part of that new assumptive world. So you're kind of letting go of some of the things that have made sense to you up till now. In the third phase, it's the accommodation phase. And in the accommodation phase, you readjust to move adaptively into the new world without forgetting the old. Bring some of the past into the future with you in a way that's positive and makes meaning and makes sense for you. The last R is to reinvest in new relationships. The last thing that I want to say about the older theories around grief was the grief work hypothesis, was basically that you needed to vent before you could heal, and was discredited in the early 1990s. Maybe I'll moisturize first. I feel like people do that, right? I also don't really have a skincare routine at all, so this is like the only stuff I'm ever putting on my face other than soap and water. So, oh, I should probably take off my hat. Ooh. Oh my God. So I never really understood when people said they had like dry skin or oily skin or whatever. I don't really understand 100% what those words mean. Like I couldn't look at skin and be like, oh, their skin is, you know, X, Y, or Z, unless like, I don't know, I guess dry if it's like actually flaking off their face, or oily if they're like shining in the sun. But I don't know, sweat does that too. Does that mean they're oily? I don't know. I have no idea what kind of skin I have. This felt really good, so maybe I have dry skin and it needed some moisture. I don't know. Something to think about. I think I'm gonna put on my foundation first, called Light Ivory. It's got warm yellow undertones. I'm really not excited to find out what this feels like on my face. Jesus Christ. Half of the runtime of this video is gonna be me taking off stickers and things so that I can open bottles. Thank God a lot of these are just like palettes that you just click open, I hope, unless there's like some crazy super glue on the inside that I have to melt with a torch first. Oh my God, there's so much stuff. This is very overwhelming. I don't understand how people have like a million products that they carry around with them at all times. It said, start in the center of your face and brush outward. So does that mean from my nose, or do I like put a dot here, and then just go? Do I use a lot? This is fun. Okay, we painting. This is the closest shave I can get because I have like very sensitive skin, so I haven't used like an actual razor since I was like 13. I think my skin might be pinker than this is. So this might completely not make any sense and look absolutely ridiculous. I already feel kind of ridiculous, but I also was never good at like drawing or like painting or anything, so I don't really know why I thought that this would go any better. And how do I know when I'm done? Ate part of the brush. Am I supposed to put it around my eyes? Because now it looks like I have like two completely different skin colors. This is perfect. Okay, fuck the brush. Okay. Okay. What do you think? That looks good to me. Does my skin look any different? Yeah, it does. I look like kind of yellow down here now. Great. So, nothing's changed except for I look a little bit more sick now. I know I'm acting like a moron, but it is because I have never seen or used any of this stuff before. Like I've seen like the outsides of these things, but I've never actually obviously tried to use them at all, and it's a lot harder. I always knew that makeup was like a real art, and I was always super impressed whenever people could like do their own makeup and have these like beautiful eyeshadow like craziness. Ooh, I'll use the setting spray. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but maybe I should. Maybe I'll just put it on after everything because I don't know what I'm doing anyway, and maybe it'll feel good. Okay. Huh? God. Postmodern grief theories, but now with foundation. So I feel like people throw around the word postmodernism a lot, but don't always know what it means. So I'm gonna clarify that first. So postmodernism in the late 1900s was a shift from science and data as like the end all be all of reality, making like data the only thing that creates a truth, to a more subjective and relative understanding of the world. Some postmodern theories of grief and how it works. There is the dual process model. There is a loss orientation and a restoration orientation. And people, which I think are pretty self-explanatory, you're like feeling bad, really experiencing the loss, feeling really connected to the lost person, and struggling with that. And then there's the restoration orientation. You're making new relationships, you're making meaning out of that relationship that you lost, and you're moving forward while holding on to all of the benefits that you've gotten from that person. The idea of disenfranchised grief is really important. It's grief that's not recognized or validated or supported in the mourner's social world. The cultural norms of grief in the griever's culture. If you're a kid at a funeral and you lost a parent and you weren't crying, there would be some judgment around you not crying as a kid because you're expected to grieve in a particular way. And so disenfranchised grief is when like people grieve in different ways or have relationships with people that aren't recognized. So for a long time, obviously gay people in long-term relationships, a lot of those relationships, when they lost someone, people didn't recognize that as a true relationship. Straight people probably would not acknowledge the severity of it or the fact that it matters at all, because it's like, what are they to you? They're not your husband, you know? It can also be more complicated. Like, let's say someone had a mistress and the mistress dies, and there's already a lot of baggage around it. So if you're grieving your mistress's death, you're not going to have a lot of social support. Disenfranchised grief really highlights the social aspect of grief. A significant portion is the cultural norms, the rituals that people have around loss and death. Disenfranchised grief is really common in the situations that we're going to be talking about that are specific to homicide, because when someone has a family member or a friend who's murdered, if other people have not experienced that in that community, a lot of people end up staying away or avoiding for worry of saying the wrong thing, or it's just like sometimes really uncomfortable and not knowing how to interact in a very unique situation. And that can become a sort of disenfranchised grief when you don't have the social support that you were expecting because the loss is so unique. Another kind of disenfranchised grief comes in where the circumstances involved in the death were either stigmatizing or embarrassing. The murderer or whatever, let's say they die, the people who are family and friends of that person probably will also experience disenfranchised grief because they're grieving under circumstances where other people have a relatively negative opinion. Some people may be cheering, maybe excited about the loss, and it can lead to a very difficult way to process and grieve the loss of that specific relationship. Ambiguous and non-finite or chronic grief is another type of grief. There's kind of two main ways that ambiguous loss can come about. The first is when someone's physically present but psychologically absent. So things like dementia or being in a coma, the person is obviously still physically in the room with you, but they are no longer how you knew them. And so there's a sense of loss of that relationship, even if they are still physically there. So you know you're kind of connected to them, but you're grieving at the same time because everything in that relationship has changed so much. And the shame that comes with that, like I should still be spending time with them, I should still be doing X, Y, or Z, but it makes me feel so bad to be around them because I'm grieving, but I'm confused, and it can be really complicated. And so that's that kind of ambiguous loss. The other kind is where people are physically absent, but psychologically present. This really comes into place with what we're talking about today around like high profile murder or some other kinds of loss, like being kidnapped. They could be kidnapped and alive, or they could be murdered and they just didn't find a body. And so the person is gone, but you don't know for sure that they're gone. And so they still sometimes feel very psychologically present as a part of your life. It's hard to adjust because there just aren't a ton of common ways to approach this type of grief. There aren't particular rituals that you can partake in, like burials. If you don't have a body, you can't bury something. If a person was kidnapped, you don't know whether they're alive or not. Do you make that assumption and try to do some sort of wake, some sort of ritual around it, or do you wait to find something out? It's complicated. And so there's where a lot of that ambiguous loss comes in, and sometimes these things can take years. Let's do the next part of the makeup. Whenever I'm pouring tea with this, I feel like Sarah's dead. Except for she actually has her shit together. Maybe I'll do contour, highlighter, and blush right now. I will use highlighter. Oh, what? It's like a gross shiny gel. It's very liquidy. I think you put it here. And a little on your nose. Is it highlighting? Is it doing its thing? And then people do a little Cupid's bow, right? Cupid's bow. You are highlighted. I'm really excited for the contour. Let's do this. Oh wait, I need the contour brush, if that is such a thing. I'm sure I can find it in here somewhere. Bronzing? Is that the same as contouring? The concealer brush is so cute. Oh my god. Look at how little that guy is. I love that. I'm gonna say that this one is, it says bronzing, so I think that is the same thing as contouring. Probably, you know, angles and like blending. Oh, it's very dusty. I didn't realize it was a powder. I thought it was kind of like gel-like. Okay, whatever. So we will do that. Ooh, oh wow, this kind of feels nice. Okay. Cheekbone. Hello. You know, I should do this more often just because it's like really fun. The other problem is like I have a functioning left hand, but it's not particularly coordinated. I don't know what happened with my brain, but I am definitely not ambidextrous by any means. Oh wait, can I do that? Does that do anything? Did that change anything? I can't really tell. And then people always do like the up here, right? Because you don't want a forehead. God forbid you had a forehead. A small, tiny pea head, no thoughts, no brain, just contour. I can't tell if this looks any different. Okay, which means I'm probably doing it wrong. And then I think you're supposed to do like your jaw. Should I put more on? I can't tell. I don't want it to be like ridiculous. Well, you know, we're way past that point, so. And now I get to do blush, which I'm very excited about. I want some like cute little powdery, some cute little pink on my face. Okay, which one is for blushing? When do I get to blush? This one says total face, and I feel like I'm probably not supposed to use that one for blush, but I'm gonna do it anyway. There's these 4 colors, and I think this one's like the most maroony, so I think I'm gonna go with that one, but I might do a little combo action because I really like that sparkle. Okay, this one's a little more matte. Yes, I know what the word matte is. You could say I'm a beauty blogger now. Too much. I look like Raggedy Ann doll. Is this helping? I can't tell. I think it is, because it was just a little circle before. I guess it looks like I'm blushing, so it did something. Okay, I've got foundation on. I've got my contouring that I think is just my beard line. It's like making it look defined, but it's mostly contour. Oh, set it again, because I can. Oh, God, I hate that. Next part. So, how has grief changed over the centuries? Let me paint a picture for you. Grew up on the Oregon Trail, 1845. You were born. You know, you're traveling, stopping every once in a while. You set up camp for a little while. Your family is like, actually, I don't know if I want to be here. Move a little farther. You're 15 now. Time to get pregnant, obviously. So you have a kid, you get married, grandkids at 30, and then you die at 35 from natural causes. Our life expectancy has more than doubled in over 100 years, so the death process is not like a simple, quick event like it normally was before. Instead, now we have modern medicine, and the death process has been so medicalized that often we are trying to go for quantity over quality in terms of end-of-life care, and so people have their lives extended for over a decade when their body is really not doing well, maybe their mind is declining, and family and friends are in on this process the entire time. So the actual dying process that was a day before, now it's not like a quick event, it's a process. And the process of death can take so long. And at the same time, you are dealing with continuous loss. You're dealing with not only like the same loss of this person is going to die and I need to figure out how to cope and deal with that, but there are many milestones along like the dying process. You might have to be continually making decisions about healthcare. What do they want, you know? Are they capable of making those decisions at this time? It's especially difficult in the US where people have to make so many decisions around, can I afford to pay to keep this person alive? Can I afford a life-saving surgery that probably will mean they live for another 30 years, or do I have to let them die? But medicalization of death and dying was something I mentioned. It's a huge moneymaker. Doctors are very incentivized to continue the dying process for longer. So let's talk specifically about how when people get murdered or they lose a loved one through some other horrific means, it can really impact the grief process. Common reactions are to feel like no one can understand the depth and the intensity of your grief, and you can have very unrealistic expectations about how long it takes to heal. If you expect to have a grieving process that's similar to what you would have with any other situation from a natural cause, then you are likely going to feel shittier for a lot longer than you expect. Another common reaction is like shock and numbness. Obviously, it's really hard to grasp that, and sometimes your body just doesn't want to deal with it. So denial, another big one. The pain never goes away. Even now, I can't really talk about it. It's so painful. The other common reactions are intense emotions, horror and anguish that your loved one may have felt before and during the time of the murder. Fear is a big one. I think many trauma-related experiences, people will feel fear after. Guilt, a lot of survivors' guilt. People will think, why them? Why not me? Anger and resentment, big toward the perpetrator, obviously, towards the police and the criminal justice system when a lot of things don't get sorted or when police are constantly badgering you, and toward everyone who can't bring back your loved one. Anger and resentment are completely normal. Depression and loneliness are obviously completely normal. Isolation, it can be really hard to connect with others in your life to talk about the loss because it is such a unique situation. Usually there's an immediate wave of support from people who are close to you and from your immediate community around you. Then that can kind of wane over time. That quick wave, once it moves on, can really create that sense of isolation, loneliness, and being unsupported. You may still be dealing with that loss and with the feelings of grief, but other people don't have the bandwidth to be able to continue to support you, or don't know how to continue to support you. Close loved ones and friends may also pull away because they don't know how to communicate about this anymore. They are worried, what do I say? What if I say something wrong? How do I connect with you anymore? There might also be a lot of physical symptoms that come along with the intensity of this particular kind of loss. Panic, an inability to resume normal activities, flashbacks of the moment you learned about the death or saw images of the body, visual thoughts of the crime itself, and a need to know every detail of your loved one's death. A few additional elements to dealing with this particular kind of loss include dealing with the police, constantly having to retell the story or stories around where you were or around things about the victim in order to help police get new information. There could also be trauma around the police in general already, and that can make it really hard to then want to interact with police in order to get the crime solved. Also, sometimes the police don't do shit. A lot of the times police don't do shit, and that can be infuriating. And often as well, police can be very dismissive of victims, and that can make it really difficult to feel like your grief means something, like you're being taken seriously. Or sometimes people who are mourning the loss of their loved one can sometimes be suspects of a murder investigation. And if you did not do that, then being accused for the murder of someone who you love and care about, it's hard to even imagine the pain that would go along with that process and how difficult it would be to grieve under those circumstances. You might also have to go through multiple trials over an extended period of time with the perpetrator appealing the sentence again and again and again, and having to show up to these things, sometimes be a witness on the stand, or, you know, people just want to be involved and know the convictions, know what's going on. So showing up to court all those times can be really complicated, painful, and difficult. Media as well. Sometimes the media slanders the loved one, but also the media will sometimes turn on you. One other thing that I found that was really kind of particularly horrifying about potentially being involved in this kind of situation, sometimes there are people who are really fucked up and they are fans of notorious serial killers. How do you function and create a new understanding of the world when it's so messed up? When people, individual people, this isn't corporations, this isn't like bigger systematic problems, this is like an individual who chose to do something horrible that's already affected your life, and other people are supporting them. There can also be a lack of closure without a conviction, anger, desire for justice. God, I don't know how people do true crime podcasts and stuff, or like whatever. I'm talking about not even true crime itself, but more about something related to it, and it's hard to just talk about these things. There was a kid, Miguel Rios, who was killed in a robbery on July 18th, 2020 in Chicago, and his mother, Catalina Andrade, said, "It's been a year and 7 months and still I haven't gotten justice for my son. It just hurts that I'm here, and it hurts to see other families go through the same thing that I'm going through." Not having closure after such a long period of time means you have to stay on that front line and fight for justice for your lost kid. It's only every single day reliving the same trauma and grief at a very intense level. There's also a lack of closure without a body at all, or if you, in really gruesome situations, only get parts or pieces of a body back. A lot of frustration when you can't bury someone, a lot of religious ceremonies involved, you know, having a whole body. Sometimes people won't even let coroners do autopsies on the victim or won't want to donate organs or things like that because they need to keep the body intact. Trauma can stay rooted in the body, as I'm sure many of you know. Read Body Keeps the Score if you haven't, and it can really shatter your assumptive world. People may also see violent or graphic images of the loved one in media. Of course, this changes based on the relationship that you have to the person who was killed. If you're their child, if it's a parent, if it's a grandparent, friend, partner, whoever, the way that people are going to grieve will align partially with some of the normal things that people would do with that particular kind of relationship, but will also have tacked on all of these other complications. I'm gonna do my eyes. Okay, and then we'll get started on how to deal with this if you're in this position, which I hope you never are. So I'm gonna try to do like a little sunset. So eyeshadow, solar, starting with yellow. Well, that looks kind of nice. Okay, I don't know how far up I'm supposed to go. Okay, heat. God, okay. Yeah, this is great. This is awesome. I love this. Not bad. And now we want candy. For the very middle. Or for the very... How do I even open my eye that much? Or do I? You can't tell the difference, can you? I can't. Whatever. That doesn't look terrible, gotta say. Could be worse. Could be worse. For a first timer. Hey, look at me. I'm beautiful. Now we do eyeliner. I hate the idea of eyeliner. Oh, it's retractable. Cool. So how do I... Oh God. People would put it on this, right? Oh no. Oh wow, I hate this. Oh my God, I'm from 2009. Oh. Oh yeah, just get it right in the eye. Good, good, good. Well, I better do that thing where they go out to the, like, to the wilderness. Oops. Just gotta fill that amazing cat eye in. Do a little flick. Oh yeah, look at that. That's crazy good. Wow, who knew I was so talented? Eyes are gross, like in general. Yeah, definitely never doing eyeliner again. It's not fun. It doesn't look good enough for this to be a problem. Great. Okay. Those are my beautiful eyes. I will do my lashes. Lash out loud. Lash it loud. Volumizing mascara. Oh, just get it right in my eye, don't I? Okay, that's good enough for me. And the other side. Okay, how did you learn to do this on both sides? Equal? Oh my God, y'all are talented as fuck. I already respected it a lot as an art form, but okay, you know, this is significantly harder than I already thought it was. Oh my God. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Oh no. Okay, moving on. Why don't we talk about the next thing and then we can get to the lip. I hope you are never in this position where you actually have to deal with grief after someone you know has been killed. So how to deal with this if you are in this position. A lot of people will say that you have to go to a grief counselor after something like that happens. No. A lot of grief and loss can be handled internally with family and friend support, with religious ceremony. In recent history, especially with the growth of healthcare industries and continuing ways to benefit financially from that, from the industry, they have pathologized everything to the point where you feel like you need medical services for it. It's a natural process. Obviously, murder, not like natural. Death is obviously natural. Murder happens sometimes. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean you need services for it necessarily. If you are struggling and you want them, I hope that they are available to you. There are so many racial and cultural differences with connecting with professional grief counselors because of stigma around mental health in different communities, but also because the healthcare industry is racist as fuck. Basically, sometimes white grief counselors will stereotype people of color's emotions and assume that this is how they are supposed to be, so it might not be a form of grief that they need to deal with, because they're like, oh, you already should be aggressive, you already should be, whatever. If you are in the situation, talk about it with people who you trust and who you know won't judge you or give you unwanted advice or tell you how you should feel. You need to trust your own feelings on this one, and nobody can tell you to speed up or slow down this process to feel a specific way. Or if people are giving you advice when you just need someone to listen, do not go to that person, because often people won't have advice around this that will make any sense or that will help you at all. Sometimes all you need is someone who's there to listen so that you can vent, you can cry, and you can figure out how to make meaning of this horrible situation. Don't act like things are fine when they're not, because putting on that facade can make it really hard for you to be honest both with yourself and with other people when you are really struggling. So sometimes people don't know necessarily to reach out to offer support if you're pretending like things are fine or like you've dealt with your grief around this issue. If you are overwhelmed and feel like you may hurt yourself or others, ask for immediate support and guidance. If you're already seeing a therapist, tell them immediately if you're having any suicidal or homicidal thoughts, or if you have any plans to do so, or you can call 911 and hopefully get services readily. I don't always recommend that because police usually will be involved. Most of the time they're just terrible at their jobs and will make things a lot worse in situations when they don't need to be. So talk to mental health counselors if you can, go somewhere, get immediate support, and often there are 24-hour hotlines, so I'm going to leave some of those as the resources for the video today. Breathe, meditate, especially when you're feeling afraid and overwhelmed. Kinds of breathing techniques. So there's the 4-4-4-4 breath, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then just rest your breath, like don't do anything for 4 seconds and do that again. It's called square breathing. Really helpful. I like the 3-7-8 breath. You breathe in for 3 seconds really deep, you hold it for 7 seconds, and then you breathe out over 8 seconds. That one is supposed to constrict a specific vein that will help stop the flow of blood, and then it releases it all at once to help you relax. Very good. Also, just do a couple of those before you go to bed anyway. Really nice. Avoid making quick decisions about what to do with the belongings of your loved one, and do not let other people rush you. Again, this is your own timeline, this is your life, this is your relationship with that person, and it's nobody's to dictate how you are supposed to deal with that. Put off making any major decisions about moving or changing jobs. People often feel like they need to make a big change to make themselves feel better or to just get out of that particular situation, to get out of that funk, but it can just add a ton of stress, which ends up making things worse. Not bad. Simplify your life for a while. Make a list of your responsibilities and see which ones you can put aside for a while or which ones you can let go completely or ask other people to take over for you. Sometimes some simple things, just like doing your laundry, if you have a friend, a family member that is willing to take those on for you, that can really take, okay, I didn't mean to make fun, but a load off. But take care of your mind and body, exercising, eating healthy, getting better sleep. All these things help lift depression. Being healthy and having healthy habits in general will help you get into a good flow, feel good in your body, and it'll help release endorphins, it'll get you all the vitamins that you need, and can kind of help keep you on track. Along with that, avoid drugs and alcohol use, because it is really common for intense traumatic episodes to lead to a form of addiction. Most of the patients that I've worked with said that actually the suicide of a friend or like the death of a loved one was the triggering event that led to their drinking or Vicodin or cocaine use that became excessive. and then it was too hard for them to be able to stop on their own. So really try to avoid drugs and alcohol as a way to cope with the increased stress. I'm sorry if it's impossible to take me seriously. My face looks like... I'm sorry. This is like a very serious topic, and I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because I really love when other YouTubers are doing this around true crime, and I thought it would be like parallel, but not be doing the thing that they're doing. But now I just feel kind of stupid. Anyway, stay busy, to be occupied, but not so busy that you're frantic in activity or overwhelmed. So you want to make sure that there's not like a lot of unstructured time in your life. This is also something that we tell to people who are suffering with addictions. Idle hands is the devil's workshop, or something like that. So keep yourself busy so that your mind doesn't continue to wander with a lot of those difficult thoughts, reliving some of the situations. If you're having sleep troubles, avoid doing upsetting things before bed. Don't go to bed before you're tired. Give yourself 30 minutes of worry time early in the day if you can, to try to compartmentalize a little bit, and then, let it go for the rest of the day. Write down your fears and nightmares, put on relaxing music or meditations. Don't get frustrated with yourself if you can't sleep. Sometimes people just give up and say, well, I guess I'm staying up for the entire night. Instead of doing that, rest your eyes, rest without sleeping if necessary, lay quietly, read a book, listen to some calming music, and definitely see a doctor if sleep problems persist for a long period of time. Find small ways to help others, as it'll ease your own suffering. The easiest way to help someone is to let them help you. So if you're a friend and someone is dealing with it, come to them with like small problems that they can do something about, then sometimes that gives people meaning and can help them kind of work through some things and feel positive. Journaling your feelings, writing letters to loved ones, sometimes writing letters to the deceased in order to cope and kind of process some of those feelings is really helpful. Ask for help when you need it, definitely. Thinking about the things that gives you hope, making a list of them, and turning to it on bad days can be really beneficial. Remembering that these feelings are temporary, even if it doesn't feel that way at the moment. Eventually the pain will ease regardless of how overwhelming it feels in the moment. Be aware of anniversaries. So this is a big one because people don't always recognize that it's coming up on a year or 2 years or whatever, and they'll start to feel pretty bad, get a little depressed, feel pretty irritable, and not really understand what's going on with them. And then 3 weeks later they realize, oh, this is the day that sucked a year ago. That was one of the worst days of my life. It can be hard, but you do have to find meaning in your life without that person. Your world is definitely forever changed without the person, and with the experience of specifically murder taking that person away. Couples often specifically really struggle with this because they go from an identity of a we to an I, and trying to reformat that can be really complicated. Rebuilding can be really painful and a slow process, but it's always doable. It is always doable. Will have new meaning to understand that such intense violence can occur in your life. There's no really getting around that because that is the experience. But the impact that will have, it's up to you to decide how and to what degree it will impact you. That's not to say like if people aren't dealing with it well that it's their fault or anything. It's just to say everything is out of your control except for how you respond to things. That is what you can definitely have in your little locus of control. Here is how not to support someone if they're in this position. This advice is pretty much taken from an article that's about suffocated grief from sexual assault survivors. So it's not a one-to-one with homicide or murder, but I do think it's really helpful advice. So if someone that you know has had a lost loved one as a result of murder, do not offer general stuff like call if you need anything. Don't encourage graciousness. So you're so lucky that it wasn't you, or fortunately you got to take some time off of work. Big no. There's an idea of oppressive tolerance. I can understand why you're so angry and upset, but it's been 2 months and it's time to move on. Absolutely not. Don't make comparisons of non-normative and normative life experiences that minimize the loss. So I understand what it's like because my grandma passed away last year, or when my boss chews me out, it feels like he's gonna murder me. No, absolutely not. Don't avoid the person who's coping with this form of loss or grief. It can feel sometimes the easiest when you don't know what to do, but I'm gonna give you some tips. So hopefully you will and you can come back to this if you need it, which hopefully you do not. And don't remind them of benefits like you'll have a great story to tell or this experience will make you stronger. Absolutely not. So what do you do if someone's in this position that you know? Offer concrete support and follow through. So let's hang out Saturday at 6 o'clock. We'll get dinner and we'll watch a movie. That's a way to be there for someone, to offer a crying shoulder if you need it, but also provide some normalcy and some camaraderie. Be sure regarding fault that it is not their fault. It's not them who caused any of this, and sometimes people can feel that way, especially with survivors. Remember the anniversaries and triggers to be sensitive for the bereaved. So if you're having any intimate relationship problems with that friend around the anniversaries, you can kind of get that and be a little bit more sensitive to what they might need in that time. You definitely want to acknowledge the loss experience. Ignoring it, not beneficial. They're going to be suffering and not feel comfortable to talk to you then. Provide space and time for sharing when you can. I mean, this is not something that you are directly dealing with. You're dealing with the person who is dealing with it. And so it's not your job to help them through it, but as a friend who cares about and loves that person, I'm assuming you're going to want to, but that doesn't mean it should come at the detriment of your own mental health. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and only offering support when you know that you can actually follow through. My lips, and then we'll be done. Let me draw some lips on me. Okay. What? Oh, okay, Jesus, it is going on. Like a 3-year-old. I can't draw in the lines. Okay. Oh, hell yeah, that looks amazing. Look at these lips. Wow, now I actually just look like a clown. Black cherry. That seems the most similar. And then maybe I'll put on a little. Yeah, no, that's great. Oh no. Okay, this is the first time, so I am actually kind of proud. I know that's a lot because of this, but I am. And I feel like I can get better at this. That's rough. Okay, and we're gonna put on a little lip gloss. I don't know if you're allowed to put that on top of lipstick. Makes my lips look so luscious and shiny. Okay, this is over. Oh no. Oh God. Can you believe how beautiful I am? Oh my God, let me put my hat back on so I can really, you know, look like myself, but just elevated, you know? Like, if you were to see me at the start of the video, did you think that I could look this good? I don't know. I mean, like, it's really up for you to decide if this makes me like an 11 out of 10 or something like a little higher. Yeah, look at that. Amazing. The eyeliner. The eyeshadow, okay. I think the eyeshadow is not too bad out of everything. And I think that I did good at the start with like foundation, highlighter, and contour. I feel like I did those things pretty okay. And the blush, I feel like I have cute little rosy cheeks now. I'm gonna say that the eyeliner and the lip liner were the two biggest disasters of this. So maybe those are things to work on or just to cut out for next time. And I would like to work on mascara because I feel like I already have naturally pretty long lashes. So I don't really know if I need that much to make them better. Okay, so let me know in the comments if there are any other unique challenges that you think people who are dealing with this kind of grief face. I know there's a ton in this field, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people who will have experience with grief counseling or with going through this in particular who would want to share something that could help others. The resources for today are going to be for families who've lost people due to homicide and some resources for finding grief counselors in general. So if you need that, that'll be in the box below. God, this is ridiculous. So I hope you're well. And I hope you're showing both yourself and others how much love, gratitude, and kindness you have to offer the world. I will see you soon. Bye.
Hot job, new in town. Want someone to show you around. Well, no one knows this place just quite like me.